Hey guys, welcome to the Let's Talk Fishing video podcast. This is the one I've been waiting for. Tonight I have Steve Rockweiler from South Louisiana. I've been waiting for months to get this guy on, man. This guy is one of the most knowledgeable bass anglers in South Louisiana. And I just cannot wait to talk to him. And there's just so much going on. It's going 45 minutes. We're not going to be able to cover it all because the Responsible Anglers United banquet is this weekend, this Saturday, 6 o'clock in Gaines, Louisiana. Look up Responsible Anglers United on Facebook for more information about that, guys. If you want tickets, right down here, it's scrolling across the bottom, givebutter.com, Responsible Anglers United. How are you doing tonight, Steve?
Doing great.
Please answer. There's a lot of people who aren't from around here watching the podcast. Tell us, why do we need to buy bass? Why is Responsible Anglers United buying bass to stock in the waters of southern Louisiana?
Well, twofold, which we're trying to supplement the population here. Ida 3 years ago killed a lot of fish. I haven't had anybody to give me an estimate, but it looked like to me in all the pictures I was sent, probably 80%. So it was a huge loss. And we're rebounding, and the Wildlife and Fishery, who I am a member of the Finfish Task Force of this state, that the governor appointed me to that 4 years ago. So I get to talk to biologists every quarter at the headquarters in Baton Rouge, and they tell you, we do stock inland lakes, but the estuary, the open estuary that we live on, they don't really believe in that. They said it will bounce back on its own, and that might be true. But I've been through many, many hurricanes in my 72 years.
I'm sure you have.
It takes 5 or 6 years for it to come back even close to what it was as far as the size and the numbers. And so we're in the process now where there's a lot of young fish out there.
Yeah.
But we would like to supplement that. Plus, we're going to stock some Florida hybrid bass and hopefully get some size. I mean, I was fortunate enough over the years to catch some really big bass, which this Delta just doesn't have. These marsh bass, genetically, they're a short, fat little fish, and they don't live very long because of the amount of salt water that comes in and out of these marshes every time something happens. So
sure.
The reason they grow so quick, they're fast growing bass, but if they could live the 9, 10, 11 years steady, you would see some huge bass.
Yes.
But yeah, we're trying to supplement those bass, get the population up and give it a little boost. And also, we're going to catch some nice fish doing it. I've been looking up to catch some of these bass. Whatever the state has stocked a few here over the years, and they have, like when Lake Calawatchie was so good with all the hydrilla, the whole lake was full of hydrilla. For about 10 years, there was a lot of 7 and 8, 9 pound, even 10 pounders came out of that lake. And I got in on some of that. So, I mean, it'd be hard to explain to me that doesn't work.
Yeah.
I got living proof that does work.
Yes.
As far as size.
I do agree with you. Boy, I've been involved in efforts like this before. I don't see how stocking bass can be bad. If you build it, they will come. It'll even stimulate the economy. If we start catching 7 pound plus bass down here, guys will come from all over to try to get that. Our tournaments will be packed if we start getting 25, 30 pound baskets. Boy.
Well, we had that at one time here. I was in a tournament in 1994, I think it was, with Dwight Deloche, a friend of mine. And we came in that day on that tournament with 20.5 pounds. And you know what we placed in that tournament?
What? Tell me.
19th.
19th?
19th. There was 18 other guys that had bigger stringers. Now, that was back when they had hydrilla in this entire area. From Lake Buff to Lake des Allemands to Lake Salvador, and all the bayous connecting had hydrilla. And it was just fabulous. And the spawns were highly successful spawns where a majority of the fish survived, had places to hide and grow. The water was filtered. It was clear water. And those few years in the 90s, up until the 1999 Bassmaster Classic that Davey Height won, it was just, you couldn't have got any better.
Boy, I want to interrupt here for a second, guys. My comment section doesn't seem to be working. You can thank StreamYard for that, but don't think I'm ignoring you, because I'm not ignoring you. I'm not getting. I can't post comments, and I'm not reading it. Tad, I saw yours. Thank you. Tad Mazey's actually watching, Steve.
Okay.
That's a good friend of ours.
Okay. Well, technology.
Technology is great when it works.
Oh, yeah. You know, and there's a lot of technology in fishing now.
Yes, there is.
A lot of controversy in that. But I'm glad I was brought up in an era before that.
You learned how to fish.
Yeah, you had to learn how to read water.
Yes.
The life cycle of the fish you were after. If you didn't know that, it was a long haul, So yeah, if you gain knowledge by doing that makes you a better fisherman.
And up where I'm from, up in the Northland, where most of the fish are offshore, boy, it was trial and error.
Right.
We fished between islands. We would go out until we couldn't see the weeds anymore and throw out the anchor. So there was about 90% of the lake we couldn't fish. But
there were spots that you did well in repeatedly, so you had to figure out why those spots were different from the other spots.
Yes, we did, and that was trial and error, man.
There's a lot of things that you discover that made that spot where they congregated. So
oh yeah, well, like weed lines. Weed lines, my favorite, or rock piles. If we accidentally found the rock pile,
right,
fishing along, all of a sudden we get a snag, and we get a snag in the same spot every time. There's something here.
Well, on these lakes and bayous, if you find a bottom with these clamshells, mollusks, they normally hold bass because the shad hover over them. Shad are filter feeders. They feed through the water, but they also, I've seen them picking at these algae on these shells. So,
yes.
It helps to know where these places are because they're going to hold bass.
Absolutely.
Because when Lake Catawatchee was covered with hydrilla from bank to bank, it was just one or two boat roads that went through that lake. It was that thick of hydrilla. And people would go out there and say, well, the fish could be anywhere. Well, that's true. But if you knew where those shell bottoms were, under that grass, there was going to be fish. And if you knew that, that helped.
That does help. As far as our event on the 8th, we're also going to be raffling off a guide trip with Levi Thibodeau. Now, the day I had Levi on my podcast, he had gone out on Toledo Bend, which is where he's going to do the guide trip, and he got 30 pounds of bass, guys. Imagine that. Fish with the guy.
This is a young up-and-coming pro. He's fishing the Bass Opens this year. He's already won several tournaments as co-anglers and whatnot. And now he's guiding on Toledo Bend with Martin God Service, I believe.
Yes.
And he's anybody that wins that trip is going to learn something.
Oh, absolutely, man. That's going to be so much fun. And I believe he just won a tournament over in Florida.
I believe he did.
So
he just caught 34 pounds of bass with 2 over 9. So that was a heck of a tournament.
And he was fishing the Harris Lake chain. My dad used to live on the Harris Lake chain. And I tell you, that's not the easiest body of water to fish.
No, I used to fish Florida a lot in the 70s before I got messed up and got married. But
there you go.
I passed by there going south, and in all those lakes, Eustis and Harris, all of them, it looks so good, I just never did stop and try it.
I fished it a lot with my dad, and I fished it also with my dad's friends. And one of my dad's friends fished it every single day. He was retired, and he said, 1 fish a mile. So fish with the guy who wins tournaments, man. That's going to be fun. And of course, the highlight of all this, of course, is the smallmouth bass trip.
Yep.
That's
a trip of a lifetime. I've fished for 63 years and I've never caught a smallmouth bass. I caught a ton of spotted bass, but I've never caught a smallmouth bass. So,
guys, I bought a walleye boat when I was living in Illinois just so I could fish Green Bay for smallmouth bass. That's how much these, Steve grew up fishing the canals around Lake Catawatchee. I grew up fishing the smallmouth bass streams of Illinois. I'd ride my bike down there in the morning and and just jump in a smallmouth bass stream with a couple of hooks and a couple of jigs. And we would catch smallmouth, little ones all day long. Smallmouth bass are a special fish, and Tyler Rivette is going to just be done with the Bassmaster Elite Series tournament on there. So he's going to have at least 6 solid days of fishing there.
Right.
And they're going to fly you up there. They're going to fly you up to Detroit, put you up in a hotel, fly you back. And of course, the highlight of the whole trip is fishing with Tyler Rivette.
Right.
On Lake St. Clair. Lake St. Clair is a smallmouth bass factory, guys. I mean, Lake St. Clair is such a great trip. I just had a guy on that I went to high school with, a full-time muskie guide, and he says he has caught as many as 15 muskies in one day. They used to call the muskie the fish of 10,000 casts.
Yep.
Man, back in the, I'm going to date myself here. Back in the 1990, when I lived on Lake St. Clair, when I was in the Air Force, I would go out there in a 16-foot lund with a 25 horse and 2 rattle traps. And I would catch smallmouth bass like you wouldn't believe.
Well, talking to some of these guys that's been up there, it's not unbelievable. It's not unusual to catch 70, 80 bass in a day.
It happens.
And some of them are 4 or 5 pounds, 6 pounds. That's a smallmouth.
It happens. It happens. In fact, for years, my biggest bass was a smallmouth bass. And that's unusual.
Oh, yeah.
When your biggest smallmouth's bigger than the biggest largemouth.
So whoever wins this trip with Tyler, that's going to be the trip of a lifetime.
Tickets for this raffle are right here, givebutter.com, Responsible Anglers United. They're $20 a piece, guys. $20 a piece. $20 a piece. Get that. You spend $20.
Right.
And if you don't win, you're benefiting the fishing in South Louisiana.
Also, if you want to make the event in Gaines Community Center, it's $50 to enter. All the food, all the good drinks you want, desserts. There'll be a lot of things to buy, a lot of auctions. We've had great support from all the businesses in the region. They were generous to us, gave us a lot of stuff to do this with. So if anybody wants to show up, they're going to see something. And even if you can't make it, buy a $50 ticket. We're going to use that money to purchase bass.
Butchery Pig. Butchery Pig. I can't wait. I'm going to be there. I'm going to be there, guys.
It's going to be there's going to be a lot of good fishermen and exciting things happening there. We've got a biologist we're working with. He's out of Texas, and he raises big bass, and he has his own business and hatcheries and stuff, and he's agreed to be a consultant to us. So we have a lot of knowledge that's going to go into this.
Yes. I mean, there's going to be a lot of people to talk to there. Steve's going to be there. I'm going to be there. Blake Benoit, Tad Mazie from none other than Crush It Gel Bass Crack. He's going to be there. And I mean, everybody there except for the wives is going to be a bass fisherman. So plenty of BS is going to be flying, man.
Oh, yeah. But a lot of these gals today are good bass fishermen. Look at Tad's wife.
Yeah. Jeez.
She's a good.
She catches more fish than I do.
Yeah.
Guys, if you're trying to comment, please, I'm not ignoring you. Comments are just not working tonight. It's just part of StreamYard. I'm not very happy, but it's kind of like Facebook. If there was a viable alternative, I'd switch today. But I got Steve Rockweiler on, let's just talk to Steve. So Steve, tell me, what is your man? If you're out here fishing in South Louisiana, it's windy and it's in the fall, what would be your go-to presentation for big bass?
With the wind in the fall, I'd probably throw a moving bait, spinnerbait, crankbait, maybe a bladed jig.
Yes, that's my favorite.
And if I could get a little spot that's not too windy, get out and get a little leeward side, I would be throwing something like a wacky worm, wacky rig.
Delta Lures.
Delta Lure makes one of the best.
Thunder jig, man. That's not my favorite color. My favorite color is currently
Delta Lure. Makes some great spinnerbaits, makes some great bladed jigs, a Thunder. Really all good baits.
You know, it was when I went out with Tad Mazie on Catawatchee, and it was like 30-mile-an-hour winds. We probably caught 15 bass that day, despite 30-mile-an-hour winds, and they were all on the Delta Lures bladed jigs with swim baits on the back of them.
Yep. You probably were fishing a little bit of scattered hydrilla.
This color.
You know, that if that lake comes back with the grass, it'll be exciting.
This is my favorite color for bladed jigs.
Okay. All right. I use about 3 or 4 colors. I like black and blue.
Yep.
I like white chartreuse, basic stuff.
Sure. You know, I'm the kind of fisherman, I have about 6 different presentations I use, but that's it. But I believe have a few presentations and master them. Like the wacky rig.
That's good advice. You know, most bass fishermen have so much stuff in a bass boat. Probably got 300-400 pounds of tackle in there.
Yep.
I remember one year, I think this was in 1996. I had back then, all the boats were like 17 and a half or 18 foot. You had a 150 horsepower limit if you were going to fish bass tournaments. And so it was right after that they did away with the 150 limit. But all the boats were smaller.
Yep.
And I had all this gear in a 17.5-foot boat. And around here, it's critical that your boat floats a little higher.
Yes.
You get to places where you're going to rub bottom. And so, you know, one year I said, you know what, I got too much junk. And I said, I'm going to get down. There's a tournament coming up out of Dwarons, which is in off of Lake Verret by the basin, Chapelin Basin.
Oh, yeah, over there in Stevensville.
So I said, I'm going to pick 6 lures and put them in this little brown paper bag and, see what I could do. And I wound up with, that was sponsored by Miller Lite. That was the biggest tournament I ever fished. It was 354 boats in this tournament. And a friend of mine, Danny, and I wound up winning that tournament. And he wanted to get in the boat with a big suitcase tackle box, like these 747 Umco deal.
Yeah, the Plano 747. Yeah, they weighed about 70 pounds. Yeah.
Take just one tray out of this tackle box and bring that one tray. And we had a long run. And that whole year, I fished out of a brown paper bag. So that gives you an idea. It was one of my best years. And I didn't have 10,000 lures. I just had, 4 or 5 baits of each, a pack of worms or 2, a jig, a spinnerbait. That's what I used.
Well, I think fishing as a co-angler really helped me sharpen my skills because I couldn't have, what, like you said, the 400 pounds of tackle that I had and I couldn't have the 15 rods that I had in my boat.
Right.
I could carry 4 rods and, basic stuff, spinner baits, a couple of square bills. Of course, up north, I like to use shad wraps because it's primarily a shad forage. And, a couple of different jigs and about 60 packs of soft plastics. And that was it.
Oh, yeah. Well, you see a lot of these young guys start off as co-anglers and they go to be a pro, which is a lot. That can be advantageous because it makes you whittle down to what you're going to really be using and not get distracted with a bunch of other junk that you're not, probably not even going to look at.
What I think really hurt me as a fisherman is guiding. Because I became focused on catching 12 inches,
Right.
Because you got to put fish in the boat. And if those fish aren't biting, I'm going after the bluegills.
Yeah, you got to produce.
And, or, put leeches on the bottom and, we're fishing for walleyes and actually they were catching big cats, but they were thrilled.
When I was a kid, we moved out of the city of New Orleans. I was in the inner city and I really didn't like the city. We moved to a little subdivision that was out in the middle of nowhere called Avondale.
Yeah.
And in the back, maybe not even a block from my back door, my mom could call for me, was the starting of a canal with a little pump on it. And it went straight back to Lake Catawatchee, which became famous when KVD caught that record 15 bass limit, almost 70 pounds.
Yep.
2011. It was always a good area, a good lake. And I started off with a little spin cast rod and reel I borrowed off of a comic book with some, pre-rigged 3-hook cream worms.
Yes, the cream worms, yeah.
H&H spinnerbait. It wasn't even a real Rapala. It was a Japanese knockoff Rapala. And started fishing with those lures right back in my house, and I was catching 3, 4, 5 pound bass. I thought everybody was doing that, you know,
Yes.
but that's how special that area was. You know, it had fish, and so you know, as I grew up older, I would go back at what is now the Savile Wildlife Management Area. Back then, they called it Gulf Canal, and it was private until the state bought it in the late '60s. And I would go in at one of these bayous and get in a run out of the marsh, which is called the French color tonnage, and I would catch 80, 90, 100 bass. You know,
Jeez.
it would be 11, 12, 13 inches, but you could sit there and literally catch that many fish back then. That just goes to show you the difference between then and the early '60s and now. You don't have those days. You know, those days don't come anymore. So the whole delta is kind of in a bind, eroding. There's so many canals cut in it. Canals are good to fish, but they turned a lot of the marsh to open water, and it's also sinking because they levied off the river, so the river can't put sediment out there anymore, and so it just salt water gets in out rather quickly now. Whenever something soft wind starts blowing hard for a couple of days, so that's all detrimental to what it used to be, and so we're trying to bring back some of that special fishing that we had I remember in the '60s and '70s. But you know, when I was young, I would catch a 5 pound bass. And I'd just look at it. I said, you know what? That's a huge bass. And for them days, it was.
It was.
So when I started tournament fishing in 1970, that's what, 55 years ago.
Yeah.
Most people would go and catch 5 bass, just as long as they were over 12 inches, and then try to catch a kick of bass. I would start off the day fishing an area that I knew held a big bass, and I would just stay there. And if anybody was fishing with me, they'd get all aggravated.
Yes.
But that's just the way I like to fish.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
You know, sometimes back when I first started tournament fishing, the state limit was 15, and that's what the tournament limit was.
15?
Then it went to 10.
Okay.
It went to 7. Now it's the tournament limit for years have been 5. But I remember when the tournament limit was 15, I would come in with 5 or 6 fish and win some of those tournaments with 5 or 6 fish because they were catching 1.5, 2 pound fish.
So what's your favorite soft plastic for bass?
I like worms. I like a little bigger worm than most people.
So you're talking a 10-inch worm, a 12-inch worm?
In this marsh, 10-inch.
10-inch, okay.
Places like Toledo Bend and everything, 12. But I also like lizards. I use lizards a lot this time of year. And the beaver style baits are real good. And Cinco, I mean, you can't leave the bank without a Cinco because at some point in the day, I'm going to throw that Cinco.
Oh, yeah, man. If I'm in the back of the boat and the guy will slow down a little bit, I always, when I'm bass fishing, I don't care who I'm with, I always have a wacky rig on one rod.
Yep.
And actually, Tad taught me how to use I had used chatterbaits. I just never really did real well. But then when I fished with Tad Mazie,
he made you.
Well, he just started catching fish. So, of course, I'm going to try to replicate that so I can catch fish too. Because it was just, with 30-mile-an-hour winds, it's kind of hard to cast something like this.
Yep. I never will forget the first time I saw a bladed jig. I used to get on a computer on a site called Pro Bass Networks.
Okay.
And it was now the big thing is BBC, Bass Boat Central has like 80,000 members. And there's a lot of people on that. But back before that, it was Bass Pro Networks. And I talked to a father and a son that had made that lure, invented that lure. And they were from the East Coast. And one time they put a little short video on that site, and it was like a little clear creek, and they threw it out, and they would vibrate back. And there was a bunch of people kind of laughing, that's cute, but it'll never work. So I kind of on the side sent them a message. I say, hey, if you make a couple of them, I'll be willing to buy them from you. And they sent me 2. And after that, they named the company Rad Lures. And then this guy that started Z-Man Lures bought them out. So but I got my hands on two of the early ones, and it was unbelievable. I started using them. I wasn't expecting much. They worked. And that's probably one of the most thrown lures today is a bladed jig.
Yes. We went from spinner baits. Remember back in the day, everybody threw white spinner baits.
Yep.
And that was back during the days of the creamy worm. The pre-rigged worm. We had K&E bass stoppers up north, and back in the 70s, that's what I used.
Right.
Pre-rigged worms, and they had little Aberdeen, the brass Aberdeen hooks that bent, and I would hook into a 4 or 5 pound bass, and it would straighten that hook.
Yeah.
Dad's friend gave me a white spinner bait, and then I actually, when I hooked into a big bass, up there it was a couple times a year, I got to actually bring it in.
But I learned a little bit about trolling baits. There was a fellow from the Great Lakes that he moved to Florida, and this was in the late 60s, and he was a guide for a few years, and then something happened, and I know he had crippling arthritis, but his daughter lived down here in Louisiana on his delta, and he moved over here. And it was right about 2 miles from my house was a big pond. Well, it was probably a mile by a mile, called Willswood Pond, and they dug clay out of it to make Highway 90 in the 30s. So it had a 30-foot channel, like a triangle around the pond. And so it was deep, something you didn't have around here. I love to fish there because it was deep, and it had ledges and coming off that pond into the channel. And I met him. He used to have a little inboard, like 5 horsepower brake horse motor on a little square back, kind of like a little bigger than a canoe, and skiff. And he would troll real slow, up, and he'd troll H&H spinnerbaits and a pre-rigged 3-hook cream worm back in that boat. And there's a science to it. You let out so much line, you give it so much speed. You could slow down, speed up. But this guy would catch some of the biggest bass in that lake. But he had such crippling arthritis that he would have to put his rod after he hooked one and started fighting it. He'd had, 60, 70 yards of line out sometime. He'd have to put it in a rod holder because his hands would start locking up. So one day he saw me. He said, "Hey, kid, you want to come fishing?" I'm on the bank fishing. I said, "Yeah." So got in there with him, and we started trolling, and I would fight the fish, and he would just get the biggest kick out of it. And so it was a real learning experience for me to see how you could rig a pre-rigged worm, troll a pre-rigged worm, or troll a spinnerbait, and it was very effective. Of course, in tournaments, they don't let you troll, which I don't understand that, but I guess, they want you to catch.
That's trolling is how I used to catch the walleyes in the Great Lakes. And yes, it is a science. They have books that have dive curves for all the crankbaits. And I can't wait to get a boat so I can start trolling on Lake Pontchartrain for those giant specks.
Right.
But okay, back to Responsible Anglers United. We're going to have an event this weekend, guys. Saturday, the Gaines Community Center, Gaines, Louisiana. Look up Responsible Anglers United on Facebook.
Yes, 6 to 10.
6 to 10. We're going to have live music, butchery pig, all you can eat, booze.
Everything's covered under that ticket.
$50 for a ticket, guys. $50. And if you're like, well, I really can't get there because I live 1,000 miles away, go to Give Butter. You can even make a donation.
We'll appreciate it.
This is something that you guys can do all over the country. If your government won't put enough bass, what you think is enough bass in your lake, up in Illinois, we raise money and we got a permit and we put our own bass in the lake. In fact, the state park that I used to guide on actually gave us one of their small ponds as a rearing pond. So we put smallmouth bass in that rearing pond a couple times a year. The bait shop owner would go up there with 25 pounds of minnows, dump it in that pond, and then we'd come out there and the biologists, and we would help the biologists. We'd net them out.
Well, now you're giving me ideas, Jay.
Yeah, you can do that, man. There's thousands and thousands of different ways you can do this. You just got to be creative. Like Steve Dufresne and Big Ben. Man, I'm getting excited. I can't talk. Like Benoit did. They thought this up. we want more bass. Well, we got to do something. If we wait around for the government to do this, our grandkids won't even have the fish.
That's right. But like I said, the wildlife fisheries told us, the biologists, that this place wouldn't recover. But we've been having storms. It seems like every 10 years we get a storm.
A devastating storm, yeah.
I think, there's 4 hatcheries in this state. The biggest one is the newest one, Rockweiler. I think they raise Florida bass strictly at that hatchery. But it seems to me they would, if a storm hit this region or hit, say, Lake Charles, they got hit with 2 bad hurricanes a couple of years ago. It seems like to me they would come in and stock for maybe just 2 years or 3 years, give it a boost, But I don't think they look at it that way. It's gonna heal on its own. But I'm 72. I don't know how many more 5 or 6, 7 year I've got in me for this everything to bounce back. So that's why we're doing it.
Yes, I agree with you. And I'll tell you what, I'd like to do a huge shout out to Tad Mazie for bringing Responsible Anglers United to my attention. Because he called me, I was out in the field working, and I saw it was Tad, so I answered my phone, and he said, I want to tell you about something. And he told me about Responsible Anglers United, and I said, text me their phone number. I'm in the field, I'm driving, I cannot write it down right now. And he texted it to me, and he told them about me. And that night I talked to Steve Dufresne and said, man, you have my undying support, and you just wait. Because when I grab onto something like this, I don't let go.
And we've got some great people
behind
this, like Steve Dufresne, Blake McGraw, Tad Macy, and a bunch of guys, too many to list, that have jumped into this, saw the need. We're doing this for the future fishermen. There's a lot of junior high anglers now, a lot of high school team anglers. They're going to reap the rewards of all of this too.
And so am I.
We're excited. But like I said, every time that they stock bass, Florida bass, in Lake Catawatchie, in the Zalmans, where I fish a lot, or in Lake Buff, where we're stocking a lot of these fish, I've caught big fish within a few years of them stocking those fish. So that it's exciting. I know it works.
It does work. It can't. How can it not? One fact I haven't brought out today, we're not stocking fingerlings, are we?
Well, the biologist is going to get us some prices. He's going to get us better prices than we could get on our own. And so I would like to stock nothing but the bigger fish, 5, 6, 7, 8 inch fish. They got to jump on the rest of them. Their survival rate goes way up. Predation on it from other fish goes down. But it's all a deal of how much we can get for how much we've got. So that's what we got to look at. How much do we raise, and what's our cost? Will we buy the 1 and 2 inch fingerlings, or do we buy a mixture of both? That's all what we have to look at.
Well, I can tell you just from personal experience in Illinois, when we stocked 10-inch smallmouth bass, we were catching catchable, 15, 16-inch bass within a couple of years.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And, when we stocked fingerlings, they were very rare in that lake.
Right. So I would envision us at least getting some of the bigger, fish to start with, because we're going to get quicker results.
Absolutely. And also you're going to get more recruitment.
Right. And I think that'll get people excited when they start coming in with some really nice fish.
Yes. And they start coming in with more fish.
Right.
Then we're like, hey man, see, we were right, but there's no way we can't be right. And if I'm not right, I'm going to come on this show and I'm going to say, I'm sorry guys, I was wrong.
Well, I mean, the biologists are saying that this place will repopulate on its own. But everything is a matter of what?
Time. So
how much time do you want to do this? So that's
I don't have a whole lot more time. I'm not in that good of health.
Right. But even for the young fishermen, we just had, I think, 3 tournaments the past week. And I was told one of them 8 pounds won that tournament. In the spring, coming up into February, normally we catch in stringers to win these tournaments 18, 19, 20 pounds. I think another tournament was won with 7 pounds, and one in the Lake Buff area out of Kramer was won with 4 pounds.
4 pounds.
That's a bunch of guys fishing all day long for 4 pounds of. That's not good. It's not good.
No, that's not good. Wow. That's not good. I don't have anything else to say to that other than that's not good.
But that's why we're doing this, and
That's absolutely why we're doing this.
we're all excited. We're picking up steam this last week. We got the event Saturday at the Gaines Community Center, and so many people are jumping on board. It's exciting.
Come on out to the Gaines Community Center, guys. I'm going to be there. Steve's going to be there. Steve Dufresne, Blake Benoit, Tad Mazie. You can talk to us, man. You've seen, I'm a podcaster. You know, before I was a podcaster, I was a radio talk show host. I like to talk. And I called my podcast Let's Talk Fishing because that is ask my boss at my 40-hour week job. I like to talk.
But like I said, the stuff that you could buy and bid on will be fabulous stuff. I mean, I went and picked up a bunch of this stuff this week. It's just great stuff for fishing and outdoors. It's going to be a good time.
And every penny you spend is going straight to buying fish, guys.
Yep. Every dollar.
Everything else has been donated to us. You know, Steve's great at Steve Dufresne's great at what he does. Fantastic person, man. Just benefiting the fishing in South Louisiana.
And
time will show how much that's going to benefit.
Yeah, it was exciting to see that when he mentioned to all the companies in the area, this is what we're trying to do. We'll have a banner on all of our different Facebook sites, plus one Responsible Angler site, recognizing everybody that put in and donated something. And, and we ask everybody, please honor and do business with our local businesses because they're making this possible. So that's great.
I was honored when my logo went on that. Like, thank you. That's cool. Yeah. I like that. I like being recognized like that by such a worthwhile organization. But hey, man, it's getting to be about 36 after the hour. Do you have any shout outs you'd like to do?
Well, like I said, I'm grateful for Steve Dufresne to kind of come up with this idea. Steve's always run a few tournaments in Lafourche Parish out of a little place called Beck's. And he's always had, interested in having people come out, have a good time. Just Blake, Benoit, Tad, there's a bunch of guys. But like I said, all the businesses, your sporting good businesses, Shag Sporting Goods, oh my goodness, all of them. I'm trying to think of there's a lot of businesses that donated to our effort, and really thankful for them.
Okay, guys, I see that a few of you are texting me.
We had, let me mention B&B Tackle. Austin plays on us.
Austin, yeah. There's a good fisherman.
He's a good fisherman, heck of a bass fisherman. He stepped up and gave us some great prizes, that donated. There's just so many guys. My mind goes blank when I'm, got to hit with it. But
of course,
a lot of people involved in this, and we appreciate them.
I appreciate everyone who donated. I appreciate everyone who's supporting us. Even if you just send us $2, that's still $2 we didn't have, guys.
Right.
Just just give what you can. I don't have much money with the cost of living nowadays, but right. I work tirelessly to get the word out to people because I believe in bass fishing, man. Bass fishing is just it's not a sport to me. It's a lifestyle.
Yep. And what we're asking everybody too, as we stock these fish, try to target some other fish more for you, because everybody likes to have fish fries.
Sure.
That's a big thing in this region is your family, crawfish balls, crab balls, shrimp get-together balls. But try to target what we call sockeye or crappie. Try to target some catfish. What I like to do with my grandkids is I go out, I'll throw out 10, 12 jug lines.
Oh, yeah. That's fun.
Catfish around here, usually within 2-3 hours, there's a catfish in every jug line.
And some of them are over 10 pounds.
Enough fish for a fish fry. So, and then we pick up our jugs and go home after we fish for a while. But,
yeah, eat the sockeye, eat the specks, man. Specks are great to eat.
That's for trout, yeah. So we're asking people to try to let these fish kind of get a spawn or two under them, and before we harvest them.
Oh, shoot. Yeah. Let the guys like me and you come in there and have fun.
Oh, yeah. But, for years, I used to tell guys, I'm not going to tell anybody, don't keep a fish.
No.
They're paying a license and a boat and fuel. But I used to tell them for 40 years, if you catch a bass and you're going to, keep it, keep a pound, a pound and a quarter, pound and a half bass. If you catch a 3 or 4 or 5 pound fish, let them go. that is what I call a breeder. That fish,
breeder, yeah.
A lot of fish. Not only that, but when I take the grandkids fishing, or any kid, I take a lot of kids fishing, and they'll catch a 4 or 5 pound bass just to see the excitement in them and everything. So if you have some out there in the water and that's possible, it's a great time for the family. So, I used to always tell them that, hey, keep the smaller fish. You don't know if he's going to make next year or not. A 3, 4, 5 pound bass is beating all the odds out there.
Yep.
Going to live a while. So let them go. Let them be breeders.
Also, a 5 pound female produces a whole lot more eggs than a 12 ounce female.
Yeah. Plus probably a little better genetics.
Sure.
They got that big, so probably something on its side.
It's something going for it.
Yep.
Well, I'd like to tell you guys again, my comments were not working. I was not ignoring you guys. That I blame that on, well, no, it's not that I blame. It was StreamYard's fault. But anyways, Steve, thank you so much for coming on. I'd like to put a huge shout out to everybody involved in Responsible Anglers United. You guys rock, man. This is going to benefit the fishing in South Louisiana for a good long time. Let's try to make this an annual event. You have my undying support.
Proud to be a part of it. Proud to be a part of it.
Absolutely. And Steve, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to come here and talk about this.
My pleasure.
It was an honor to have you on. It was an absolute honor to have you on. I hope to get in a boat and fish with you someday, my friend.
Yeah, we'll put some pictures on this site, on one of your podcasts.
Thank you. Yeah, hundreds.
I'm just fishing for a couple now.
Well, anyways, man, with that, I'm going to end the podcast. And Steve, I'm going to send you I know you got to get going to meet your wife. So I'm going to send you a link via Facebook Messenger of this podcast.
Okay.
And everybody else, thank you so much for tuning in to the Let's Talk Fishing podcast. With that, man, guys, it's Wednesday. Make your plans, go fishing this weekend. I'm going to be at the Responsible Anglers United, so I'm not fishing this weekend. But, remember, guys, in your end days, you're not going to remember all those great times you had sitting on the couch watching television. You're going to remember taking your kids fishing. You're going to remember taking your wife fishing. You're going to remember fishing with the cool guys you fished with.
Come on out.
Come on out, guys. There's nothing like spending a great day with a great people fishing and feeling that first tug on your line. Absolutely. All right. Have a good night, guys.
Good night.
And Steve, thank you again.